Thank you, Helen, for inviting me to do this today. What I've done actually is I've sort of combined the idea of rising on eagle's wings with the fact that we're in Lent, and I hope that's okay with everyone. And I'm sort of going to step us forward a little bit into the events around Holy Week and think a little bit about what's happening with various characters in those stories. So the verse that rising on eagle's wings comes from is from Isaiah 40:31. Do you not know that even the youths grow weary and exhausted, but they that wait on the Lord will renew their strength. They will rise on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not faint. And as this is a networking event, I thought it'd be good for us to think about what rising looks like in our own projects in Leeds. So when we grow into breakout rooms, that's what we'll talk about is, what does this look like for us? What might it look like to be rising? And at the end of 2 years of lockdowns and postponements and pandemics, then it's probably something we all are a little bit afraid to think about, maybe, or on the other side, desperate to step into, just rising and doing something different. But I didn't quite know how to address the rising on eagle's wings just on its own. For me, it's really linked to the first part, this idea of waiting on the Lord. Because it seems that, yes, we can rise on eagle's wings, but the key part is what we do before it. Rising doesn't seem to be part of our own endeavours for the writer of Isaiah. It's part of what happens when we do our bit of waiting on the Lord. So that's all simple and easy, right? Just wait on the Lord. There you go, talk over. We all know how to do that. Yeah, good, nodding, everything's good. What does it actually look like for us to wait? So as it's Lent is a time of preparation. The point is to get ourselves to a place where we're expectant, hopeful, waiting for the resurrection. But we also know that during this waiting, we have to endure the crucifixion to get there. And I wonder if we're willing in our lives and our projects and our work to face what comes in periods of waiting. So I wanted to talk a little bit about some people inside of our biblical story of Holy Week that do waiting, because as a good, dutiful biblical scholar, I find it really hard not to just end up back in the text. So I hope you will forgive me a little bit for that. I want us to look at 4 areas of waiting, 4 aspects of different people who have to wait in different ways during that week. Because I think I've got this idea in my head from Christian tradition or from, I don't know, from my background, that to wait is to be still. But I wonder how real that is for most of us. How do we just be still and wait for God to move? What does that actually look like? And I thought it'd be interesting to look at the people who are actually waiting for a physical embodied Christ and how they waited. Because I've got chronic fatigue syndrome, and if I find it hard to be still, then what hope is there for most people? Because I spend a lot of time lying down. And maybe you feel a bit impatient with God right now. There's so much turmoil in the world, so little can look like it's changing sometimes. Does this mean we're failing at waiting? Are we not doing it right? So we're going to do a little bit of an exercise that I do with students, and that's to put ourselves right in the middle of the narrative in our Gospels. There's a bit of a problem when we read the Gospels, and that's that we know what the end is. It's like watching a film with spoilers. And it's really easy to judge the characters, the people inside those stories, because we know what's coming and we can't believe they make the choices they make, knowing who Jesus is. But when we're reading it, those people, they didn't know what was coming. So we're going to try and put ourselves in their place. So let's start at Gethsemane. In Luke, we're told that Jesus goes to the garden and he says to the disciples that they should wait and pray. Tells us this odd distinction. He goes about a stone's throw away from them, so he's not super far away. And he prays, and when he comes back, they are sleeping. Most of us are consistently kind of used to the story that gets told in Mark, which is that Jesus comes back and chastises them, and then he goes away again, and he comes back and they're asleep again. But Luke says something different. Luke says they were sleeping, and the Greek expresses it as from their grief. Let's put ourselves in the place of the disciples. They've been told that the person they're following, the person they love the most, is going to die. Luke's Jesus is very explicit that though a great thing is coming, trial is also coming and his death is coming. So when they're told to wait, their grief causes them to sleep. I know that I have been that person. Sometimes we are waiting for things that are key to happen in our lives, and we're sure that something good is going to happen, but what's going on right now is full of grief. Maybe after the pandemic, you absolutely can understand that. Maybe right now, looking at what needs to be done, we might be fearful of things that are happening, say in Ukraine, humanitarian crises around us. The grief is paramount. So though you're meant to be waiting on the Lord, your body's just exhausted and you're going to sleep. I'd never really noticed that phrase until I came to prepare this, actually. And I think sleeping because of grief is something I feel a lot of us can understand and encounter. Definitely in the churches I work with, there's a feeling of just being tired at the end of this 2 years. We want to wait actively, but we're exhausted. The next person I want to look at is Peter. Jesus is arrested, taken to the temple, and Peter waits outside in the courtyard. We're told that he waits. And as he waits, expecting Jesus probably to come out and do something triumphant, he gets provoked by people. You're that man's friend, aren't you? You're that man. You're with that man. You're that one. You're with him. You're with him. You're definitely one of his. You're with him, right? You're with him. And we know that Peter ends up denying Jesus. But again, I thought it was interesting that Peter's ready to wait. He's ready to sit and just wait for God. Wait to come back out from the temple. He's calmly in the courtyard, biding his time. He's doing what he's told. He's waiting. But life won't leave him alone. Life provokes him and keeps provoking him. And in the end, he makes a statement that he really didn't mean. He does a thing he regrets later. He takes action because he just feels he has to say something. So maybe you've been there. Maybe you tried in the pandemic to wait for God to change things or to make everything just kind of okay again, but life just wouldn't let up. Life carries on around us as we are trying to sit quietly waiting for the Lord. Sometimes it just seems impossible. How should Peter have waited in that moment, I wonder? He's expectant. He's waiting for Jesus to do something and he finds himself a bit disappointed, and then he disappoints himself. Waiting just isn't as easy as it seems. The next group of people waiting, I think, are the women. In Luke, the women follow the body of Jesus to the tomb, and it says they prepare their spices. And then Luke says quite poignantly that they go and rest for the Sabbath. He's trying very hard to make sure everybody knows that the people around Jesus were obeying Jewish laws and doing everything right. But it means that they aren't allowed to do for someone they care deeply about something that is very holy and honouring to him. They have to wait. They're the last to leave the body of Jesus, and they're the first to arrive the moment they're allowed to when the Sabbath breaks. As soon as they're allowed, they bring what they need to do the correct rituals. I wonder how long that Sabbath felt to them. Sometimes waiting on God in the Bible seems to actually be stopping people from doing something that is also a holy thing. The choices aren't unholy things and holy things. There's other things around. Anointing the body is incredibly important. It's a key to a ritual for them, but so is keeping the Sabbath. And so they wait. They put up a thing that's a really good idea, a really holy idea. Maybe that's what waiting has been for you through the pandemic, with your projects, with your churches, with your lives. Maybe you've put off really good and holy ideas because of what was also required: keeping people safe, keeping people healthy, looking after people that you loved, not going out, not running projects that you wanted to run, that you had a vision for, not doing things that were good and holy. Maybe waiting has felt like that for you. And what's sad about the women is they're not waiting to do something fun. They're waiting to do something really quite sad. They're waiting and expecting to have nothing at the end of it. Unlike Peter and the disciples in Gethsemane, this isn't something massive happening. There's nothing waiting for them but death. And yet, when they come to the tomb, as the first to arrive, they find that Jesus has risen. I mean, that's different, isn't it? They have no expectations after their waiting period. and yet sometimes they get this reward, this amazing, glorious thing. The last group of people left waiting are the disciples who, after the risen Christ has appeared to them, are told to wait in Jerusalem. Now, if you don't pick up the story of Luke in the book of Acts, then this is the excellent cliffhanger at the end of the first series on Netflix. Just wait. I've risen. Something is coming. Wait in Jerusalem. And that's all they're told. They don't know what the power will look like that Jesus has said they will be sent. Is it power to conquer Rome? Is it power to heal? Is it power to do miracles? They don't know. Jesus simply tells them to wait and be patient. So maybe your waiting is there at the moment. You have promises, you have vision, you have things that you are sure must be coming, but you have no idea what it might look like. And so you're waiting patiently, but you're also trying not to just be speculative. Maybe you have no idea what's coming next and what it will look like. So now we're going to go into our groups. And what I was thinking was that we could move on to this question of then what does rising look like? Can we speculate with one another about what in our contexts, in the projects that are coming up, in the churches we're in, what does this rising on eagle's wings look like for us? And that will give you a chance to share with each other a little bit about who you are and what you do. You might want to reflect with each other on what sort of waiting period you've been in, if you feel you've been in one. Do you particularly resonate with any of those 4 groups of people that I've talked about who are waiting in Holy Week and just after it?